At the dawn of the new millennium, the first-person shooter genre experienced a paradigm shift. Those raised on regenerating health, shields, cover mechanics, reloading, and slower gameplay would surely be bamboozled by the mid to late 1990s FPS design philosophy of more speed, more gibs, more awesome. While Quake and Unreal ruled the first-person shooter market, games were about high mobility and twitch shooting, making fans of such games look like spastic drug fiends. While not in vogue, yesterday's philosophy of first-person shooter design still has room to be moved forward and improved upon. In recent years, a few titles have been released that embrace older FPS tropes and revitalize the twitch shooter genre. Painkiller Hell and Damnation is the most recent addition to that list. In keeping with classic first-person tradition, the plot of Hell and Damnation is skeletal, nearly non-existent really, and uses the events of prior games to begin its narrative while reimagining some of the levels from the original Painkiller and its first expansion. You take the role of Daniel Garner, who is trapped in purgatory after a fatal car crash, and wants only to be reunited with his wife, who has ascended to heaven after the crash. Death makes Daniel a deal. If he can capture 7,000 souls and return them to him, Daniel can be reunited with his wife. It's extraordinarily straightforward, and plot development only comes after every 3 or 4 levels. Cutscenes usually punctuate the end of each boss encounter, treating you to absurdly poor voice work and awkward character models moving the events forward.
So many souls in one place.
Give it to me.
Your path to freedom.
Eve.
What do you think? If I gave it to the Grim Reaper, would he release me from purgatory?
Eve, don't make me do this.
I told you, I'm not your enemy.
Thanks.
I'd like to go with you.
Why?
Because you can't trust the Reaper. I don't want to see you suffer again.
Let's go then.
Gameplay is also cut and dry. The levels themselves are not really relevant to the story. They are merely a change of scenery as you mow down countless enemies. The gunplay in Hell and Damnation is frenetic and twitchy, and Daniel comes with an excellent demon dismemberment kit. How does dispatching your foes with a chain gun with an underslung rocket launcher sound? What about a gun that spits out shurikens at Mach speed and launches bolts of lightning? The absurd artillery of Painkiller is a welcome deviation from the assault rifles and submachine guns that are staples of the modern shooter. You will find no shortage of malformed men to test your tools out on. This results in riotous fun. Daniel moves like Usain Bolt as your weapons dismember the beasts of hell that oppose you, throwing their carcasses back the length of a football field. This joyous sensation lasts for about 20 minutes, however, before you realize the charade is as shallow as the puddles of blood you leave in your wake. Painkiller is not about cleverly designed encounters with handfuls of carefully chosen foes. It is about waves of idiotic monstrosities homing in on Daniel like flies to feces. The AI is comatose, and the 30+ enemies the back of the box tout don't behave in any distinguishably different way. There are a few demons with shields and hulking strongmen that take a bit longer to dispatch, but they fail to offer much of a challenge and make traversing Painkiller's levels an exercise in tedium. The design of the levels themselves is also rather abysmal. It's much like Ninja Gaiden or Devil May Cry, where upon entering a room, the door slams shut and dozens of enemies spawn. At this time, it is advised you bunny hop in a circle until all your foes have been rounded into the center, and use explosives to dispatch them en masse. By reskinning the demons into sheep and Daniel into a border collie, Hell and Damnation could have been an excellent herding simulator. The entirety of the 14-level campaign can be played cooperatively, adjusting the difficulty, and there is a bit of replay value if you happen to be a completionist. Each level has a few secret areas as well as special conditions that, if filled, yield a tarot card. Tarot cards can be equipped for a cost between missions, and give the player bonuses like taking half damage, faster reload times, and twice the ammo drops. Money to equip tarot cards can be acquired by smashing props in the game's levels and slaying larger enemies. Visually, this is the best looking Painkiller yet. That doesn't say much since the original game is almost a decade old and the expansions have been modifying the original's game engine. Now on the Unreal 3 engine, Hell and Damnation continues to remind us of the roots of the FPS genre. Corridors are generally pretty wide and empty into arena-like areas with few props. This is done for 2 reasons. First, to minimize impediments to your movement, and to ensure that your frame rate stays high, because nothing ruins a twitchy shooter like a dodgy frame rate. While it does accomplish these 2 things, it does look hopelessly antiquated. Most levels take place indoors to keep draw distances short. Those that do take place outdoors employ walls, barriers, and fog to kill any illusion of openness. Many details like door handles are textured onto flat geometry, and further reinforce the idea that you're not in a real place, but a staged arena. The demonic aesthetic can also start to wear thin at points, and evokes cheesy 1980s metal album art. One can only zip through so many torch-lit stone halls with wrought iron accoutrements and copious pentagrams without feeling underwhelmed. There are some flashes of inspiration, however. The hellish Looney Park is a delightfully twisted area that concludes with an on-rails roller coaster shootout sequence that injects some much-needed variety into the proceedings. Hell and Damnation's online is pretty much a ghost town. If you can get 7 other people to land with you, expect to indulge in standard deathmatch, team deathmatch, capture the flag, and survival modes. If the online gameplay is as inspired as the modes present, then don't expect to spend too much time with it. Painkiller is as much a literal trip into purgatory as it is a narrative one. With a little more inspiration, it could have been a great experience, but instead it preys on the adoration that older gamers have for classic shooters. Fighting hordes of demons that have just stumbled off of Hell's short bus is simply not very amusing. The awesome toolset at your disposal cannot inject enough life into the experience to keep it from flatlining prematurely. With the multiplayer already 6 feet under, you're left with no choice but to break out the defibrillators and tackle the campaign, either solo or alone, and see how long you can make it last before allowing it to die in peace. Those who know what bunny hopping, rocket jumping, fragging, gibbing, and strafe jumping are, take care not to think that Hell and Damnation will adequately sate your desire for a nostalgic shooter with a more modern coat of paint.